How long did it take Noah to build the ark? This is one of the most asked questions we get on our website, especially those related to the ark itself. And skeptics have been asking this question, not just this one, they ask all sorts of questions related to the ark, or they're not necessarily asking the question to try to find the answer, they just think it's impossible. And so they're raising objections. They'll say things like, there's no way one guy could build this all by himself. I had one skeptic write to me and say, do you really think that some 900-year-old guy built this all by himself? And I said, no. The Bible says he was in his 500s. Come on, just read the text. So no, I don't think that a 900-year-old guy built it by himself, but the Bible doesn't say he built it by himself. But I mean, if you think about the challenges that Noah would have had to overcome, you have this enormous structure, you have to get all sorts of timber. It's assumed that he had like Stone Age tools. How could he possibly do that? And could you even build a wooden ship that large that would stay afloat? So there's all sorts of objections that come along with this. And the Bible doesn't give us a straightforward answer as to exactly how long it took Noah to build the ark, but it does give us some clues, and we're going to look at those. One place that people will turn to is Genesis 6:3. The Lord said, "My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And some people think, oh, well, this must be like a countdown to the flood, and therefore Noah started building the ark, he got 120 years. Some people will say, no, it was 100 years, because in Genesis 5:32, it says that Noah was 500 years old when he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Doesn't necessarily mean the boys were triplets, just that the oldest one was born when Noah was 500. Then the flood came when he's 600 years old, so you've got a 100-year window, right, for Noah to build the ark. But one of the problems with both of those ideas is that in Genesis 6:18, God tells Noah that he's going to make a covenant with him, and then he says Noah's going to go into the ark. It's going to be him, his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives with him. So when God is speaking to Noah, it sounds like the boys are already there, and the boys are already grown up and married. So it can't be the 120 years. It couldn't be the 100 years. It's got to be less than that. Well, how much less? Well, you got to allow enough time for the boys to be born, to grow up, and get married. How long is that going to take for the three of them? Maybe 25 to 50 years or so? Then you'd have to subtract that from the 100-year window that you've got. So if it was, let's say it was 25 to 50 years for all three of the boys to grow up and get married, you've got to subtract that from the 100, and you are left with about 50 to 75 years as a maximum amount of time for Noah to build the ark. And maybe it didn't even take that long. There's some skeptics who will say, how could he build the ark with all these Stone Age tools and all sorts of things? How do you know he had Stone Age tools? All of the technology that he had was wiped out in the flood. We know prior to the flood, Genesis 4:22 tells us that Tubal-Cain was an instructor with all kinds of bronze and iron. So they worked with metal. They may have had, all sorts of tools that would be a lot better than most people imagine. So maybe it didn't take as long as some people think. And even the complexity or the difficulties of building something so large out of wood, can you imagine working for 50 years on a structure, and you start on one end, and 50 years later, you're way down, finally finishing up on the other end? What do you have to do to this first end again? Because it's made out of wood, it's probably warped or started to rot a little bit. You have to go back and repair. So maybe it didn't take that long, unless, gopher wood has certain properties that would protect it, or maybe the pitch that they used to cover it inside and out protected it. But so normally what we would say is about a 50 to 75 year maximum time to build the ark. I remember the skeptics who say, how could one man build something so big? Well, where does the Bible say that Noah did it all by himself? Sometimes they'll look at Hebrews 11:7 that says, by faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear and prepared an ark for the saving of his household. But does that verse really mean that Noah was the only guy out there swinging a hammer? I mean, if you think so, then I've got a question. Did Solomon build the temple? Yes and no. He's in charge of the project, but we know he wasn't cutting the timbers. The Bible tells us that. He wasn't sliding everything into place. He wasn't doing the construction, but he's in charge of it. So you could say that Solomon built the temple. And in the same way, Noah is in charge of building the ark. Now, I happen to think he was out there working on it, but remember, he had those sons and also their wives were there. So you have at least 8 people that could have been working on it, and 8 highly motivated people, knowing that a flood is coming, could work pretty quickly and build something so large. But there's other people available as well, maybe extended family members, maybe other people who don't believe Noah, don't trust in Noah's God, yet they're still willing to work if there's a paycheck involved. And you know what? It only took us about 2 years to build our ark, but we were using heavy machinery and large construction crews, and dozens and dozens of carpenters were coming in. We're not saying Noah did it the exact same way, but The fact of the matter is you can build something this large to house all of those animals in a relatively short period of time. It doesn't have to take over 100 years. And if you're wondering how many animals are on the ark, well, check out our video right here about the number of animals on the ark.